Hello everyone, welcome back to Chinmoyee's biology channel. So today we are here with a brand new episode of coordination and control. So what we are going to start today, we will be studying about the structure and function of the neuron. We will be studying about the synapse or the synaptic transmission, and we will study about the reflex action. So these are the three important things we are going to study today. So please don't skip in between because the full lesson will be very informative, and don't skip in between. Stay tuned till the end, and let's get started without further delay. So now we are here with the new lesson, that is coordination and control. So in this previous chapter we have already looked at the life processes, and we know that several life processes are involved in the maintenance of the functions in living organisms, that we all know, right? So there we have started with the notion that we all know that if something is moving, it is alive. So any movement is related to life. If something is not moving, like table, chair and all, it's not alive, it's a non-living thing, right? So some of these movements are in fact the result of growth, as in plants. And a seed germinates, it grows, and we can see that the seedling moves over a few days, course in a few days, right? It pushes out of the soil aside, comes out, but if its growth were to be stopped, this movements would not happen, right? When the growth of the seedling has stopped, the movements of the growing out, the sprouting from the seed, it will stop. So some movements in many animals and some plants are not connected with the growth only. So not only always the movement is connected with growth. A cat is running, it's not growth. Children playing on swings, buffaloes chewing the cud, these are not movements which are caused by growth. So these are some other kinds of movement, right? So why do we associate such visible movements with life? So how we are associating these movements with life? What is the possible answer? We think that movement as a response to a change in the environment. So any change is there. If wherever you are sitting there, it's too much hot or too much cold, might be you want to change your place from that place to another. Suppose in class, if you are not comfortable with the place, you will go and ask your class teacher to change your place. So that is not related to growth or something. That is the environment in each we organism are adjusting. It's not quite favorable to you, right? So the cat may be running because it has seen him out. Not only, we also think the movement as an attempt of living organisms to use changes in the environment to their advantage. So if you want to get anything, if you are urging for any food, any shelter, anything, you will move from one place to another, right? So plants grow out into the sunshine. Whenever the sun is shining, you'll see many plants are growing towards the sunlight. Children try to get pleasure and fun outside in the swing, so they keep on swinging, so they are happy when they are on the swings. Buffaloes chew cud to help break up the tough food so that they will be able to digest it better, right? So there are several ways of for which we are doing certain kinds of movements. So when a bright light is falling on our eyes, we will close our eyes. When we are touching a hot object, we can detect the change and respond to it with the movement in order to protect ourselves. So what these movements are related to? These movements are all related to our nervous system, our brain. So there comes your today's lesson, that is coordination and control. So we are having some controlled movements which are being coordinated with our brain. So first, when we are entering the brain or the nervous system part, we should learn about the neurons, right? So when we study the neuron, parts of a neuron, then we will move on to the next part. So let us move on to the next part. So if we think a bit more about this, it becomes apparent that all this movement in response to the environment is carefully controlled. So all the movements are carefully controlled. So once you start eating, it's not like that you keep on eating like 5-6 plates of rice you are eating. It's not like that. You are having a controlled in your system also. That is, you are having a controlled eating as well. So your movements, your action is controlled. So who is controlling? Each kind of change of the environment evokes an appropriate movement in response. When we walk to talk to our friends in class, we whisper rather than shouting loudly. Why? Because the teacher will be scolding you. If you are loud, the teacher will scold you. So that is a controlled sound which is coming out from your voice box or from your body. So clearly the movement to be made depends on the event that is triggering it. So therefore, such controlled movement must be connected to the recognition of various events in the environment, followed by only the correct movement in response. So it is coordinated, it is connected to the recognition. When you are recognizing that it is a stage, on the stage you should be loud, you should sing loudly, then you will sing loudly. It is connected to some part of your body, right? So if you are feeling that in class you should speak quietly, like whisper, then you will be following the correct movement in that time, in that space. So that is a response. So in other words, living organisms, they use systems providing control and coordination. So this is very important. So for that only we all have a controlled and coordinated movement. So in keeping with general principles of the body organization in multicellular organism as of us, specialized tissues are used to provide this coordination and controlled activity. So as in our body, whenever we are touching a hot object, we will remove our hand. So that is a controlled movement. So if it is a burning hot object, we will not keep our hand on it for forever so that it can burn. No, we have a response to it. We should respond to that time. We should respond to that hot object. That is the response. Okay, so we will all learn this in this lesson. So let's start with the animal nervous system. So the organ or the tissue system which is responsible for coordination and control is the nervous system, right? So let's get started with nervous system. Now in animals, this nervous system, when we are starting, we have studied about the tissues, about the muscular tissues. We have seen that coordination and control are provided by the nervous and muscular tissues, which we have discussed in class 9. So I think in class 9 you already remember that we have studied in the lesson tissues in 9. So if you don't remember, please follow the link I am giving regarding the tissues. Now let's move on. Now touching a hot object is an urgent and dangerous situation for us. Suppose there is a hot object and we don't know it's so hot, so we go and immediately touch that. So what we need to do? We need to detect it and respond to it. Suppose your mother is cooking, all of a sudden she is touching the hot object with her hand. So how should she respond? She'll either drop the object or she'll move away from that object, right? So how to detect that the object we are touching is hot? How we will detect? So all the information from our environment is detected by specialized tips of certain nerve cells. So what are these nerve cells? There are receptors. So receptors are usually located in our sense organs such as inner ear, nose, tongue, and so on. So all receptors are present in our sense organs. So sense organs are having receptors, right? So these receptors, they are receiving the signals and they are taking that signals to the brain. So such as gustatory receptors will detect the taste, they are present in our tongue. Olfactory receptors will detect the smell. So olfaction means smelling anything. So it is related to the nose. So olfactory receptors will detect the smell. So this you can see, this is the neuron, or this is the primary structural and functional unit of a nerve cell. So what is it? Let us look at this type of cell, neuron. We have studied in class 9 also. This is the nerve cell. It is having a cell body. This is the cell body. It is the nucleus inside it. These branches are the dendrites which receive the signals. They carry it along the axon, or the full, this length is axon. Axon is having axon terminals or endings. They end in a muscle. So here we find the synapse, where the end of the nerve cell and the muscle. Okay, so that is the nerve muscle section where we are getting this synapse, right? So this ending is the synapse, where the nerve terminals, they are releasing certain signals. There are signals which are being released, and these signals are carried out with certain chemicals to this muscle. So like this, the information is being transferred. So this is the nerve cell having a cell body, a nucleus. These dendrites, these are the branches which are receiving the signals. They are carried along the axon to the nerve endings, which in turn they are releasing the chemicals in this synapse or the junction between the nerve and the muscle, and they are carrying the information to the muscle. So here we have told that these receptors are usually located in our sense organs, nose, tongue, ear, and so on. So gustatory receptors will detect the taste, while olfactory receptors will detect the smell. Is it clear? Now we are moving to this information acquired at the end of the dendritic tip. So this is the dendritic tip. This is acquiring the information. So it is moving along the nerve cell and sets off a chemical reaction that creates an electrical impulse. So an electrical impulse is spreading through the nerve cell. This impulse travels from the dendrite to the cell body and then along the axon to its end. So this is what I told now. It is moving from the dendrite to the cell body and then throughout the axon to the ending to release certain chemicals. So at the end of the axon, the electrical impulse sets off the release of certain chemicals. So certain chemicals are there in this axon terminal endings. So they are releasing the chemicals. These chemicals cross the cap or the synapse and start a similar electrical impulse in a dendrite of the next neuron. So is it clear now? Now this is a general scheme of how nervous impulses travel in the body, and a similar synapse finally shows that allowing the delivery of such impulses from neurons to other cells. So from neurons to other cells, how it is transmitted, such as muscle cells or certain glands. So it can be a gland, it can be a muscle. So to certain other cells, how the impulse is being transmitted, we are seeing through this process, right? So it is thus no surprise that nervous tissue is made up of organized network of nerve cells or neurons. So just now we have told that nerve cells are made up of organized tissue. So what is that cell called? That is called neurons. It is specialized. So we have told that our human body or multicellular organisms are having specialized tissues which are specialized in performing certain tasks. So these nerve cells are specialized for conducting information via electrical impulses from one part of the body to another. So please make it clear. So what is the function of this nerve cells? They are conducting information via electrical impulses from one part of the body to another, right? Is it clear to everyone? Now let us move on to the activity here. Now identify the parts of a neuron where the information is acquired, through which the information travels as an electrical impulse, and where the impulse must be converted to the chemical signal onward for transmission. So this all I have told you when I have showed you this diagram. Just see this diagram, learn this diagram with the labelings, and just follow from where the signal is being received, how it is transmitted, and where it is being the neurochemicals are releasing to another body. Okay, so now we will be doing one activity here. So let us start the activity. So here comes the activity. Put some sugar in your mouth. How does it taste? Block your nose by pressing it between your thumb and index finger. So now eat sugar again. Is there any difference in taste? These are the experiments, simple experiments. You can see that if you close your nose also, you will be tasting the sweetness of sugar. While eating lunch, block your nose in the same way and notice if you can fully appreciate the taste of your food you are eating or not. So are this olfactory senses and the gustatory senses related or not? You just find it out when you are eating your lunch. Close your nose and see. Once when you are eating, if you close your nose, you will feel, or when you are having cough and cold, when your nose is blocked, you will find that your taste of food is blurred. You are not getting the proper taste of the food, because might be the smell which you are taking helps you to enhance the taste of the food. So somewhat they are related. So you just relate it, right? So is there a difference in how sugar and food taste if your nose is blocked? So if so, why might be this happening? So read and talk about the possible explanations of these kinds and differences. Do you come across the similar situation when you have cold? So this is what I told now, when you are having a blocked nose, when you are having cold. So what is the difference you realize? And in case of a normal time. So let us see what is reflex action. This is what I told. It's very important and we'll be dealing with this today. So reflex is a word we use very commonly when we talk about some sudden action in response to something in the environment. So if someone is coming and hitting you very hard, so the reflex is what? You hit him back. So this is a reflex word that is used very commonly when we are talking. So we say, I jumped out of the way of the bus reflexly. I pulled my hand back from the flame reflexly. Why? I was so hungry, my mouth started watering reflexly. So what exactly do we mean with the word reflex? So let us deal with that today. A common idea in all such examples is that we do something without thinking about it. So you are not thinking when you are seeing something which is very yummy and you want to taste that, a yummy cake, a yummy food, so your mouth starts watering immediately. So that is without feeling, without your consent only. It is without feeling in control of our reaction. So this movement, this reflex action is not in our control. So who all are controlling this? Yet these situations which we are responding with some action to changes in our environment, and how is control and coordination achieved in a such situation? So let us take this further. Let us see what is happening. So let us take one of our example. Touching a flame is urgent and dangerous situation for us, or in fact for any animal. How would we respond to it? Certainly, if you are seeing a flame, if you are seeing an object burning, will you go run and hold that flame? No, we will not do. One seemingly simple way is to think consciously about the pain and possibility of getting burnt. We will think that we will get burnt and we will not touch it, and therefore we will not move, we will always move our hand away from that. An important question then is, how long will it take to think all this? The answer depends on how we think. If nerve impulses are sent around the way we have talked about earlier, then thinking is also likely to involve the creation of such impulses. Thinking is complex activity, and so it's bound to involve a complicated interaction of many nerve impulses of many neurons. So when you are thinking anything, it's a complex act. You are thinking, so many nerve impulses or many neurons are getting involved in that case, right? So if this is no surprise, so if in this case it is no surprise that thinking tissue in our body consists of dense network of intricately arranged neurons. So when you are thinking, it is a very complex phenomena. So it sits in the forward end of the skull and receives the signals from all over the body. So we will be studying about the brain also, but not today. That will be in the next episode. But today we will be studying about the reflex action. So you need to subscribe to my channel to get the notification regarding the next episode also, when I'll be posting the brain section, right? So when it thinks about before responding to them, obviously in order to receive these signals, this thinking part of the brain in the skull must be connected to the nerves coming from various parts of the body, right? So there are many nerves connecting to various parts of the body. They are all connected to the brain to receive the signals. Now in this part of the brain is to instruct muscles to move. Nerves must carry the signal back to different parts of the body. If all of this is all done, when we touch a hot object, it may take enough time for us to get burned. So if it is a very complex phenomena, if it is take too much time, so it will, before we respond only, we will get burned. So how does the design of the body solve this problem? Rather than having to think about the sensation of the heat, if the nerves that detect heat were to be connected to the nerves that move to muscles in a simpler way, the process of detecting the signal or the input and responding to it by an output action might be completed quickly, right? So it is a very quick action, very quick thing which is happening, and it is to respond to it will also be very quick. So such a condition is commonly called the reflex arc, which we will study today. So where should such a reflex arc connections be made between the input nerve and the output nerve? The best place, of course, would be the point where the first meet each other. Okay, so the nerves from all over the body, they meet in a bundle in the spinal cord. So where this meeting place is? This is actually in the spinal cord on the way to the brain. So the senses are carried from the receptor with the sensory nerves, which are located in the sense organs, to the spinal cord. Then they are carrying these reflexes to the brain, and again through the efferent nerves to the motor nerves, they are bringing the information to the sense organs to respond, right? So reflex arcs are formed in this spinal cord itself, although the information input also goes on to reach the brain, right? So of course, so what is this process? So reflex arcs have evolved in animals because the thinking process of the brain is not fast enough. Okay, so in fact, many animals have very little or none of the complex neuron network needed for thinking. So they can't think. Animals, they can't think so much as we human beings do. So it is quite likely that the reflex arc have evolved as efficient ways of functioning in the absence of true thought processes. However, even after complex neuron networks have come into the existence, reflex arcs continue to be more efficient for quick responses. So reflex arcs are always responsible for quick responses and no need to think at all. So this is a reflex arc. Now we will study this one. Now let us see this diagram of reflex arc. It is very important. With the labeling, you should know the diagram, what is happening. So you are touching the hot object. There are receptors in your skin. These receptors, they are receiving the signals that it is hot. It is taken through the sensory neuron, carried to the spinal cord. Here there is an intermediate neuron which is carrying it to the we can say that it is carrying this to the spinal cord, and it is sending it to the brain message, which the brain in turn, it is sending a message via the motor neuron, and this is the effector or the muscle or the arm which is being sent a signal that you should just move your arm, right? So now this effector arm is moving away from the hot object. So this is the sequence: sensory neuron carrying to the spinal cord, it is through the intermediate neuron, it is carrying the message to the brain in turn, it is through a relay neuron, through the motor neuron, it is carrying to the effector organ, and the hand is being moved away from the hot object. So this is all about the reflex action and reflex arc. So anything which you are responding against the stimulus, the response is the reflex action. So this is the stimulus. Okay, and this is the response. You are moving away your hand from the hot object. Okay, and this actionful action is called the reflex action. And this arc is known as the reflex arc. So is it clear to everyone now? It is very easy, and you should know just the sequence. So the sensory neuron is carrying the impulse from the organ to the brain or the spinal cord, and the motor neuron is carrying it to the effector organ. So this is all we have discussed in detail today about the neuron, about how the reflex action and the reflex arc is working, and what is synapse or the neuromuscular junction. So let's move up once and do see this diagram where the neuromuscular junction is there. So here you can see this is the neuromuscular junction. This is the ending where the nerve terminals end. This is the ending of the axon terminal. Here is the muscle a fiber. Here these endings, they release certain chemicals, and there is a space in between the nerve and the muscle. So this part is called the neuromuscular junction, and here the nerve impulses are released. So this is the synaptic region or the synapse. So this is the neuromuscular junction where the signals are conveyed from one part to another. So we will now see the three important definitions, that is reflex action, synapse and neuron. So three definitions we will read in the next slide. So just a quick revision. I have already told you what are neurons. Neurons are the building blocks of nervous system. They receive and transmit the signals to different parts of the body, and this is carried out in both physical and electrical forms. And there are several different types of neurons that facilitate the transmission of information. So this is the neurons in gist, and this is the structure of a neuron. And please do practice the diagram. These are the dendrites which are receiving the signals. This is the cell body. This is the nucleus. This is the full axon. These are the Schwann cells or the myelin sheath. These are the nodes of Ranvier. So this electrical stimulus is passed along the axon and to the ending, that is axon terminal. These axon terminal endings, they are having certain chemicals which are then transmitting the electrical impulse in the form of chemical impulse to another part. So that we will move on to the synapse in the next slide. So what is synapse? Synapse is a junction between the two neurons, between one neuron and another neuron, and it is a functional connection between the two nerve cells and some other cells. Okay, so if there is a nerve and there is a muscle, that is a neuromuscular junction. And if there is a nerve and any another nerve cell, always there is a gap between these two nerve cells. So that is a synaptic gap. When this neurotransmitters, that is acetylcholine and all, they are released in this gap, and this impulse is transmitted from the axon terminal endings to the other organ. Okay, so this is the synapse, or this is the process how the synaptic transmission is happening. Now we will move on to the reflex action. So what is reflex action? Reflex is an involuntary or a sudden response to stimuli. It happens to be an integral component of the famed survival instinct. Okay, so this is the reflex action, and this I have explained earlier also. The same thing is here. Please learn the diagram and the labeling. Receptors, sensory neuron. This is the relay neuron. This is spinal cord. Message is transmitted to the brain and it is taken back again to the effector organ, and the effector organ is responding to the stimulus. So this is the reflex action pathway. So this is all for today's episode. I think I have made it very much clear today with all the label diagrams, definitions and discussions. So if you're having any doubts, any queries, you can write in my comment box, and please stay tuned, subscribe to my channel, because the next episode will be very interesting and we'll be discussing about the brain. Thank you, and go through all the lessons which I am posting.